Bismillahi walhamdulillahi wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillahi. When we look at the lives of the companions of the Prophet Muhammad alayhi salatu wa salam, we find that especially in that early tier or that first group, there was a level of organization among them that was very clear when we study their biographies and when we look at the interaction of the Prophet ﷺ with them in terms of how it was that they were being developed. When the Prophet ﷺ passes away, we see a continuous effort being put forward by that earliest group that was very close to the Prophet ﷺ, and which was the group that received direction and education in such a way that they came into leadership. We see a continuous effort on their part to develop those who were coming into Islam and to create a space for them. After all, it was converts working to ensure that other converts were being developed until they were able to form a community that had a basis and a foundation. Because after all, the first generation of Muslims were people that converted to Islam. They lived in the shade of the teachings of the Quran, and they accompanied the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, who exemplified the teachings embodied in revelation in the Quran itself. But one of the key things that we find in the first generation that was very clear, it was a system of caring for each other. And we see that in different stages of the life of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, and thereafter when the Prophet ﷺ passes from this world to the next. But it is very clear that the Prophet ﷺ put deep focus on ensuring that people were being integrated into the community. And because it was a community that understood the processes, the ways, the challenges of becoming Muslim, it was a community that was conscious of the needs of those that were coming into Islam, and it didn't only remain at the level of the spiritual. We see that a security, social, welfare type of system was created so that those who were most in need were cared for. And that's why we see all the way up to the time of Medina, the people of Sufa or Ahl Sufa were people that were cared for. Excuse me. And prior to that, we see that the Prophet ﷺ, he created the system of brotherhood, Nidam al-Muakha, in which people were paired together, and that pairing together allowed people to feel a sense of support, and then eventually you find more and more the relationship of the Muslim community became one of serious brotherhood. And so people, I want to tell you, the role of the students of knowledge is one in which the students of knowledge need to learn how to work with the community. Book knowledge is not enough, but it's foundational. But learning how to operationalize that knowledge, learning how to make it work is extremely important in terms of securing those who are coming into Islam and even ourselves. Because after all, unfortunately, the direction of the community has been one in which tribalism is a very real thing. And so whether we like it or not, whether we want to call on the idea that Muslims are brothers to one another, or whether we want to call on other concepts to eliminate having to face the reality, when people convert to Islam, they're left to themselves without much support, and that remains to be the case. That remains to be the case even decades after they become Muslim. And that's why it's important for those who are coming into Islam to forge bonds with one another, so that what will emerge is that that convert community will be strong and mature, and that convert community will be rooted in principles and teachings and experiences which bring them together and allow them to move forward. And here, the role of those converts who have been Muslim for a while and have taken the path of knowledge is extremely important, because the role of the convert community, specifically the students of knowledge from among them, is to facilitate. It's not just to duplicate what was taking place in another period or in another community or in another culture. The Prophet ﷺ, when he was given the choice between two matters that were permissible, chose that which was easy. And we find that the Quran talks about yusr, or facility and ease, and how it is part of the way that Islam not only educates but legislates. And so we ourselves have to realize that our position is not the position of any other community. Many communities may have read a particular book and tradition for hundreds of years amongst themselves, and they may have generational capital from the angle that one generation after another generation after another generation from their lineage are Muslims. But the reality of the situation is that the convert community is much more akin, much more like the first generation of Muslims, and that they were coming into Islam and their family structure was being disrupted. What they knew was being turned over. They had to engage in certain practices, which meant that they had to sacrifice from their time and their wealth and their selves in order to transform to become a people of Iman. So we have very much in common with the companions of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, and I would even go to the extent of saying that the Prophet predicted your entry and coming to the deen, and he called you his brothers. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.